As the Russia-Ukraine war enters its 672th day, Russia has deployed its howitzers close to Finland's border after it seized the town of Maryinka in eastern Ukraine, which is deemed as a gateway for Donestk. Meanwhile, Ukraine has destroyed a landing ship in an attack on a naval base in Crimea. 22 months since Russia invaded Ukraine, it has about 1/5 of Ukraine in its grip, and the roughly 1,000-kilometer front line has barely budged this year. And as the Russia-Ukraine war drags on into 2024, we're now being joined by Scott Lucas, Professor of International Politics, Clinton Institute University College, Dublin. Thank you so much for taking our time and joining us here on WION, Professor Lucas.
Thank you for having me here.
Right. Professor Lucas, now the year 2023 started with high hopes for Ukrainian troops planning a counter-offensive against Russia, but it is now ending with disappointment on the battlefield, especially after Russia captured the city of Maryinka. What can we expect in 2024?
Well, I think, first of all, to try to make predictions gets us into trouble. So I think many people in the media had higher expectations of a Ukrainian counteroffensive than, in fact, what the Ukrainian officials said would happen. Ukrainian officials said this is a marathon, not a sprint. And indeed, Ukraine has gained territory in the south of the country. They gained it in the east, although the Russians, after months of attack, town, Maryinka, the broader picture is at issue here. And that is if you look behind the front lines, what you have is Ukraine continuing to stand. Remember that we thought back in February 2022 that Kyiv would fall within days, that Russia would put in a puppet government. Yet here we are going into 2024, and not only does Kyiv stand and the Zelensky government stand, but Ukraine has recovered more than half of the territory that Russia seized since February 2022. And if you go wider, and it's important to realize this is a wider war than just the front lines, if you look at the fact that Ukraine's carrying out missile and drone attacks that are eroding Russia's capability to wage war, especially the attacks on its navy in the Black Sea. If you look at Ukraine's ability now to move food exports through the Black Sea, which is something that Russia tried to prevent for 22 months. If you look at the fact that Ukraine has survived the energy war against it, and it is the important if international support continues for Ukraine's resistance of the Russian aggression in 2024, with the delivery not only of military aid, but economic and financial aid, Ukraine will gradually advance against the Russians because, look, we're talking about a Ukraine which could well, within the next few years, be part of the European Union and part of NATO. And that's something that Vladimir Putin gambled would never happen when he launched this invasion.
Right, Professor Lucas, you speak of how Ukraine is making gains in the ongoing war, but Ukraine is also complaining of shortage in ammunition. Do you think that the amount of military support for Ukraine will recede in 2024?
I think, that's the big frontline issue right now, is that while Ukraine has regained some territory, to make these big sweeping advances, fact is that the Russians just throw in a lot of mobilized men, and they continue to have the advantage in artillery. The European Union is trying to get ammunition to Ukraine, but it is not going to be able to deliver the 1 million rounds by March, which it promised. So it needs to get its production facilities in order, and you need to establish hubs for the production of ammunition in Ukraine itself. That's one challenge. But the second broader challenge is that Vladimir Putin has two big allies who are holding up military ally to Ukraine. One of those allies are the Republicans in the United States, especially the Trumpists, and the second ally is Viktor Orban, the Hungarian leader within the EU, who's blockading the 50 billion European fund to continue the economic, financial, and military support of Ukraine.
Right. Also, in what way will Russia deploying howitzers close to Finland's border affect the ongoing war?
Well, what Russia's trying to do is, without actually, at this point, expanding the war beyond Ukraine, is to shake its fist and to try a variety of what we might call hybrid warfare measures. Now, Russia, of course, is extremely upset that in another loss for Vladimir Putin, Finland has become part of NATO. So what it's tried to do specifically is to try to push migrants, including asylum seekers, across the border in waves to try to overwhelm Finland, something which it tried to do with Poland back in 2021. The Finns have responded by closing the border and by saying, no, we have to have a settled way of handling refugees and asylum seekers. But of course, Russia has also said, we're going to deploy military forces with a new Leningrad military grouping close to the border, beating its chest. The thing here is that because NATO has been re-energized by Vladimir Putin's invasion, I think you are seeing a stronger Finland. You're seeing a stronger Baltic states, including Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, and you're going to see Sweden coming into NATO probably in early 2024. So while Russia can bluster a bit that it can threaten Finland or threaten the Baltic states, it faces a much bigger challenge actually trying to do anything to destabilize them.
Right. Do you think the war has reached a stalemate with both Russia and the Ukrainian side just tired of the ongoing war, or do you think we can expect a breakthrough anytime soon?
No, I mean, stalemate's a lazy word, with respect. It's used by a lot of people in the media. Things are never at a complete stalemate in a conflict, even if the front lines don't move that much. You have mentioned that Russia has gained the town of Maryinka, which is the second and only the second town it's gained since July 2022. But you could look at an event yesterday where Ukraine destroyed another large landing ship, the third Russian landing ship that has been damaged or destroyed since the summer. And you realize that beyond the front lines, Ukraine is actually breaking Russia's control of the Black Sea. That's not a stalemate. You look at the fact that Ukraine has actually been able to hit other Russian oil and ammunition facilities, and that it's downed 5 Russian fighter jets within the last week. That's not a stalemate. If Ukraine gets continued aid in 2024, that will not be a stalemate. But here's Vladimir Putin's last gasp. His last hope to, quote, win this is to break that international support, not by winning on the battlefield, not by winning the energy war or the food war, but by trying to win the propaganda war, by trying to say, there is a stalemate. Don't help Ukraine. You won't be able to gain anything. If a lot of people believe that, even if it's not true, Putin's got a chance to come out of this with at least a limited victory.
Right. Thank you so much, Professor Lucas, for joining us on WION, sharing insights with us on the story.
Thanks to you and to all your viewers.